Welcome back to the Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard, founder and managing director of The Sales Doctor. And I'm joined today by JP Mills. Now, let me tell you a little bit about JP. JP Mills is a former professional footballer for Southampton FC who has channeled his passion for teamwork and performance into the business sector. Since joining the CFO Centre in 2017, a company founded by his parents, Colin and Julie Mills, JP has held various roles and is now one of 2 regional directors in Western Australia. He's excited to assist SME businesses in reaching their ultimate goals with the support of their part-time CFO team. JP's collaborative approach and commitment to strong team dynamics drives his success in helping business owners, CEOs and C-suite professionals to achieve their vision. Welcome, JP.
Thank you very much, Ingrid, and thanks for having me on your show.
Absolute pleasure. And really, it has been, every single conversation we've had so far has been an absolute pleasure. And I've loved getting to know you and the work that CFO Centre does as well. Now, I like to start with personal stories, but we've got 2 stories, I think, that we need to tell here. The first one that I'd love you to share with us is your father's story with what made him start CFO Centre and how he kind of developed it to where it is today, to have such expansive global reach.
Thanks, Ingrid. I'll do my best to highlight that story because it's coming up 25 years next year. So time has flown, and I guess I can tell my parents' stories, my father's story from being a CFO, but through the lens, I'm always going to have that tilt and perspective on how I viewed that because I grew up in it. So my dad tells a story of he was a corporate CFO, large multinationals, most notably probably the Mars Group. He was flying around Europe. Really felt like he was sort of part of the company's growth journey and that people cared about him. And then something happened, as it does with those corporate roles. And my pap, his father, passed away, and corporate gave him a pretty hard time about coming home and sorting that out. And my dad tells the story of, instead of coming out of the airport and turning right back to the office, he took a left and come home and realised he needed to reevaluate his life around his priorities. So first of all, he described running away from something, that corporate role, but quite quickly when he realised that he had a lot to offer SMEs who were growing, he really had a passion to help them grow, but in the SME space, none of them could afford him on a full-time basis. So he had the idea of part-time CFO or fractional CFO, as we call it now. So that was 25 years ago. So it was a bit sort of early for the market. And I've always said my dad lives in the future and just visits the present. So he's very much a visionary. And I'll try and highlight it and skip through a few pieces. But he was trying to build his portfolio of clients himself. But when he marketed that, he found out many CFOs in the UK were looking to create that sort of freedom themselves. So he had a lot of CFOs reach out to him, and he describes it as joining the movement. Fast forward 24 years, we've got 850 CFOs worldwide now working in a fractional way, over 18 countries in all 5 continents. So really having a social impact on the world by the clients that we work with. Here we are. We're still working in little teams around the world as it originated back in the southwest of England 25 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, one of that, you know how you said about, I mean, there were a couple of things that really jumped out that you just said to me then. One of the things was that, he wanted that freedom. He thought that he had the freedom. He thought that he was working towards something, that all of those deposits into the relationship bank account that he thought he had with his corporate that he'd worked for and worked so hard for all of those years actually wasn't present when he really needed it, when he needed to draw down on that bank account, if you like. And what that did was, created for him the desire to emancipate himself. And as it turned out, so many other people who felt, trapped without knowing what another solution might look like. And here he is, all these years later, 25 years later, with global reach, with having emancipated so many, CFOs to really free themselves up. But at the same time, what he's also done is he's emancipated a lot of small to medium businesses that also would have felt trapped by that position of, oh gosh, I think I need a finance director or a CFO in my business. I don't know if I can afford one. What am I going to do? Am I sort of stuck using my accountant for the rest of my life, or do I have to pay this person, an exorbitant salary with all of the payroll tax that goes with it, all of the on costs, the super, everything else? But then your dad comes along with CFO Centre and offers an amazing solution. I mean, those are the things that really jumped out at me there. And I loved how you also said... Sorry?
I was just going to say that's where the phrase was born, where don't need, don't want, can't afford a full-time CFO, but still require access to that skill set. It was the best way, and I think you just encapsulated it there, the best way to describe it.
It's just, yeah, exactly. And the other thing that I've never heard you say before about your dad, what did you say? He lives in the future and he visits the present.
That's right. He's sometimes hard to keep up with and expects everybody to know where they're going, but he spends a lot of time looking where trends are going, how to be on the forefront, and he says the best time to change is when you don't need to. So it keeps the whole global business on their toes, but he does come back occasionally to the present to let us know where we're going.
That's brilliant. Now, we've just sort of touched on that story, but yours is just as fascinating to me anyway. I find you as a person quite a fascinating individual. Your personal story is very interesting to me because it's slightly unconventional, particularly in terms of its pathway into business in some respects. And yet, as we talked that day when we first were introduced by Katie McMeekin, we talked about there being many parallels to between business and elite sport. Tell us a little bit about your journey through elite sport, and because I think it's interesting for us to really understand the mindset that comes from probably growing up in a family where high performance was a bit of a standard, and why all of you, we're only talking to you today, but you've got 3 brothers, and my understanding is pretty much for the most part you're all elite sportsmen, which is something. I mean, that's quite unusual in and of itself. And then
misspent youth, I think.
Yeah, misspent youth. And then, you are now part of the business, or you're all part of the business. So tell us a little bit, first of all, about you, and then maybe about your brothers and what makes you unique.
Yeah, it's hard to sort of look at your own story, but I guess as you mature and get older, you realise the sort of the specialness and the uniqueness, and you can actually take a look at that. So, I'm one of 4 boys. We're all in the business now, and we've all come from professional football backgrounds. Now, I have to be careful with an Australian podcast calling it football, because I definitely don't look like a footballer. So maybe, soccer's a soccer background. But we were all tight growing up. And you can imagine with 4 boys and a football in the back garden, that's where we spent most of our time, with Dad, going on that corporate journey, and Mum running the household. We spent a lot of time in the back garden, and something that I think's quite unique is, no matter how competitive we've always been to drive ourselves, we've always been happy for whoever it was, the brother that got recognised or the brother that had success. There was no animosity to have that ourselves. We were just pleased for the brother. And I don't think when mum and dad started the business, we were ever in the fold as a succession play. But as things have developed, all four boys are now in the business in various roles, leading towards those leadership roles and a succession play ourselves. So, yeah, I think sports and elite sports have got a lot in common with business, but I don't know if I just believe that because I have to justify it in my own head. You know, what right have I got to be here in this business environment? But just as simple key performance indicators of elite sports, you know, how are you sleeping? How are you turning up? You know, people say they give 100%, but if you're only turning up at 60%, 100%, 60%, very much a accountability to do your part and understand that others have to do their part to play a team game to get a successful result. All those things I think are very applicable because at the end of the day we're in a people and relationship business. Although what we do is finance, it's really what Dad calls it is a life-changing business, and he wants to, you know, we all want to be part of that.
Yeah, beautifully said. And I do think it says a lot about, clearly it says a lot about the philosophy that underpins the CFO Centre, given that it was founded by both of your parents and that they created a family whereby success was, you know, applauded within, you know, the you know, you and your brothers, rather than it being set up as, you know, a highly competitive environment, which it is in some families. I mean, you know, sometimes when we talk about family businesses, you know, it's fraught with rivalry. It's fraught with people trying to get an edge over the other family members, and that's certainly something that I don't hear at all from you. And also, I think it goes right back, you know, to the four of you playing in the garden, where it's, of course, it's friendly competition. You know, you're playing a game. That's the whole point of it. But when you each have success, it's applauded, it's celebrated. It's, you know, you're genuinely happy for, you know, for the other siblings.
Yeah. So getting older and realising that, and then looking around and not seeing it all too often, it does. But it also makes you think that's something that you want to protect. So right. not getting too businessy, but going into governance and things like that. How do we protect ourselves so the company can scale beyond us, and still have that psychological safety for the people that work within the CFO Centre? Because one problem of scale is, you know, it's all controllable at a small size, but then when you've got set, how does it still feel like the family business that people once, I think for the first 12, 13 years, everybody worked from my mum and dad's house in the outbuilding. So mum used to cook lunch for like 13 people every day. So our issue processing and our dynamics around culture stem from that, and they still work pretty much in the same way, but we're trying to wrap some real tight governance around it, but as we grow.
I mean, that sets a culture, you know, that's quite incredible, and I didn't know that. That's you know, that really adds a completely different layer, and I guess for many of the listeners, you know, you may be wondering, people, why I'm talking about, you know, with JP here about family business, but also and kind of zoning in on what the CFO Centre does, the benefits of the role of a fractional finance director or a fractional CFO. And yet I believe that it's when everyone in the organisation understands their role in delivering measurable value to those that they serve, that everything changes. And there's a video on the CFO Centre website, and I will make sure that that's in the show notes. And it talks about the numbers that matter. And I absolutely loved watching it. It was so emotional for me to watch that video. JP, can you explain the concept behind the video, because everyone needs to see this, so I am absolutely making sure that it's in the show notes. But explain the concept behind the video and how your people are literally changing the quality of the lives of the business owners that they work with.
Yeah, thanks, Ingrid. I've been with the business 8 years, and obviously grown up with the business. I think I was about 17 when it started, and it still brings a tear to my eye. Both the client perspective of the impact it's had on their lives, but also our CFOs and the impact it's had on their lives. So when I said Dad said he wanted to create a life-changing business, he defines that by, for our clients, their people, their families, and ourselves. I guess it started because it's a sort of play on words, isn't it? What we do is finance, so there's definitely numbers involved. But what we find is really the narrative and the storyline which can be told with the numbers that's really important. And so being able to tell that story can be really impactful. The other thing is the numbers that really matter is it's not usually, if you speak to a business owner, there will be a multiple, there will be an exit fee, it might be succession. You can dig into that number, but what it really boils down to is it's a personal outcome. So why do you want that number? Why do you want to get to that stage? Because when you dig a little bit deeper, it's really for a human reason. Maybe it's a business partnership and one wants one thing, one wants another. It's a relationship piece, so it's quite, not fragile, but what's the word? It's quite sensitive. So for everyone to get their outcomes, it really is understanding what's really important to them and then taking them on a journey to be able to achieve that. And it's through the numbers that we do that, but it's not usually the number that's really important.
So tell us a little bit, without giving the whole video away, can you tell us about what some of the business owners talk about in that video around the numbers that matter to them?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I see it day to day. So I'm not a CFO. I don't do what my dad did, which allows me to not get into that detail. I really try and stay on that understanding where someone's trying to get to, and then using our network and our CFOs to help them take it on the journey. So you just see things like, I think somebody's number was 12 or something, and it's the amount of birthdays they had missed of their children, or the amount of time they had got to go on holiday in their corporate role. So it's always a lot deeper. And going back to my dad's story, his number was 2-0 because there was a football match from my brother Joseph was playing for the local Swindon town, and my dad promised him he'd be at that game. We were excited about it for a couple of weeks, and when that time came, Dad had another really important meeting in Europe, so he missed the game. My youngest brother scored the 2 goals to win the game, and obviously, oh crikey, I'm getting a bit emotional just thinking about it. Obviously, when you look around to see your mum and dad, who you want to make proud, not there, obviously, I think that they're the reasons that you sort of understand there's more important things to life, and you've got to get that freedom. But what we have learnt, and I would like to say, when I say the freedom word, we talk about freedom within a framework, because freedom only comes with accountability. It's not just okay to be free and do what you want when you want. We really can only have our freedom as CFOs if we deliver for the client. So it's freedom and accountability. And I think CFO Centre provides that framework, coming from corporate and the intellectual property and things for them to get behind.
Yeah, I mean, and the words that often, people don't associate as being related, freedom and accountability, and yet I think as long as there's accountability, you have total freedom, because people have the autonomy, to make decisions based on better information, which is what the service that CFO Centre provides to business owners. but then everyone's accountable as well because you've got that framework set up. So can you just explain a little bit about the model itself, and what it is to have a fractional CFO? What's the difference, let's just say, to having a fractional CFO and having a part-time CFO?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess they could be nuance of words in terms of part-time and fractional, but speaking to our CFOs, they don't like to be called part-time because they can have maybe 4 clients, maybe a maximum of 5 clients, and they feel like the CFO for that company. So they go into the company, they work in the offices like the rest of the team, they have their email signature or their polo shirt, however that company operates. But they work on a fractional basis. So with the modern way of working in and out of the office, they may have a understood amount of days they'll do a week per month, but they really want to be in that team, and they've got phone access, email access to their CFO. So the model works in terms of, so for the client, they can engage with the CFO Centre, and that's sort of initially with people like myself, where if it's not right for them, and I have a look at their finance function, if they've got the things in place where it is right, well, that's quite easy. But if it's not, then it's a case of being honest about what they do need or where they need to get to really maximise a fractional CFO that can be very strategic and take them on that journey. But if you can't implement it, obviously it won't get done. So we usually do like a discovery day and go, here's where you said that you want to take this business in the long term. Well, that's great to know that because that's going to affect the decisions we make now. We need to know medium term because what's got you to here isn't going to be the same thing to get you where you need to go. And then we need to condense that down to a short-term plan because we don't have any contracts in place at the CFO Centre. It's basically a 90-day agreement based on achieving what's on this paper. Otherwise, we're all sat down having a meeting 90 days later, and if we haven't delivered that, we're out. So it's important that we actually bring it down to short term so we get traction and implement, but to build it in a way that we get to the top of the ladder that we want to see the view.
Oh, I love that. That we get to the top of the ladder so that we see the view.
A lot of people can sort of climb a ladder or get onto the bottom of a ladder, and then it's the right thing to do to be progressive. So you go up that ladder, but don't ask too many questions about why, and you get to the top and you're completely in the wrong spot and it's not the view you wanted to see.
What a fantastic way of painting that picture. That's a really, really good visual to have in your head because you're absolutely right. You could spend all that time climbing a mountain, a ladder, but by the time you get up to the top, you're like, hang on a minute, I shouldn't have been, climbing that ladder or climbing that mountain. That wasn't really where I needed to get to. And working hand in glove with somebody that you become, partners, in taking the business forward is a very symbiotic relationship and a critical one, because without understanding those numbers and having somebody who lives and breathes those numbers, who actually really loves what it is that they do around numbers, and having conversations about the impact of those numbers on the business and for the business and the future of the business is incredibly empowering for any business owner. If business owners are listening now, JP, and they're curious about what a fractional CFO could look like for their business, or they're wondering, God, how do I determine whether this is going to be right for me? What are some of the things that you would, recommend or suggest to them that they need to have in place in order to determine whether a service like CFO Centre is right for them?
Yeah, good question. I think I'm not a salesperson, I'm an ex-professional footballer, but the business development side of me says reach out at any time, because if it's not right or there's a journey to get to a position, we'll openly say that, because if we can't deliver and we burn people's fingers, especially living in Perth with a population of a couple of million, you won't get away with doing the wrong thing for too long. So I think engage early, be on the front foot. But what I would say is our CFOs build high caliber finance functions. So if you've got an external or internal bookkeeper, if you've got a finance manager or financial controller, you've got some systems in play and you've got some scale, they're all the perfect times to engage a fractional CFO, because they have a team to work with and hold the strategy of the company accountable through the finance function and through themselves. If you don't have all that in place, and there's a chasm between an outsourced bookkeeper and a CFO, it's going to be a very expensive resource to get the things done. So engage, we can decide sort of what the business needs, what type of person, what skill sets they need, with what systems, and then we can actually put them in place for a different price point to do what they do best, and actually mentor them and stay on the strategic side of implementing the strategy. So I'd say, yeah, perfect client would be in scale up. We typically work between 10 and 100 million. But if it's before that, then I'm sure that we can sort of add value at that stage to what it might look like.
That's great. And what does a typical engagement look like? Is it kind of the same for every business, or is there flexibility to kind of, like, let's just say you started with 1 day a month or 2 days a month or something like that? Could you go more than that? Or, I mean, how does it kind of work?
Yeah, so typically, I would say for 1 day a month, you're not going to get the traction to implement the things that you need to. So say a minimum of 2 days a month. If it suited better that was every Friday for half a day, so that we're in by the water cooler, we're part of the team, we can do 4 half days so that we're there every week. But a typical client for us is about 1 day a week, so 4 days a month, in every week, working with the finance function. That would be a typical sort of client for us. And the reason that we sort of build the capacity to around 65% and have 4 clients is because if one client needs a little bit more that month, because they're scaling up, or we've got a team meeting or an event that we've got to go to, then the CFOs can still sort of manage that within their portfolios and don't have to let their client down. If they're 5 days a week busy and somebody wants more, they're just not able to do it. So yeah, we keep it quite a capacity of 65.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's just so much that has been thought through. And the interesting thing for me is that regardless of the country, you know, the model is sound. You know, it's a tried and true. It's a well researched, well implemented model that works regardless of the country, regardless of the language, regardless of the business. It just continues to work, and its success really speaks for itself.
Yeah, so my dad describes it as a stakeholder model. So you've got to have a look at all the people that are being affected in the business and who's contributing to get that work. So efficacy is a bit of a sort of theoretical word, but if it doesn't work and the CFOs don't get what they want, and you're able to access the market in a way where everybody gets paid on what they do, it's a stakeholder model and based on being fair.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's the beautiful nature of coming right back to that concept of freedom. You know, it enables a business to have the flexibility and the strength of knowing that, you know, there are other options there within that model if it wants to. And same with the fractional CFO.
Yeah, just on that, Ingrid, because it was a really nice question for me to be able to say, we're a team-based solution. So yes, you will get your one CFO that's designated to you, but say for example, if you're going through an acquisition and we've got someone in the team that's done 25 acquisitions in their career and they're from that world, we can use their network and parachute that CFO to work with the clients. Likewise, if clients nowadays, I think there was a stat out of the UK that said 80% of SMEs were looking to scale across seas as part of their expansion plan. Well, you know, in the modern world, one CFO only knows what they know. With the CFO Centre model, if you want to launch in America, where would be the best place to set up that business through an accountant? What's the tax legislations? Who's actually going to do it? You might be better off a CFO in your home country and a CFO in the US in that example. So we can use a small team within our local team. We can reach out to the national team, or ultimately we've got an intranet where any CFO can post any question, and you're going to have 850 high caliber CFOs looking at that and getting back to you. So what we say to our clients is we will get the answer for you through our network.
Yeah, I'm really glad that came up in the conversation, because yeah, you're right. I mean, we get, as a business owner, you get the benefit of working, you know, very closely with an individual, but that individual is supported with a global network of experts, you know, who have gone through a myriad of experiences, like you've just said, that they can tap into, you know, and lean on for that experience or that expertise. But equally, there's a component too, and I think that this is something too that really adds some strength to the offer for a small business owner, because I really feel that in this country especially, small business owners are really up against it, and they are doing everything they possibly can to be successful. And when it comes to family business, there's more at stake. It's not just about the business being successful. It's about family legacy. It's about creating something really solid for the future of your family. So it kind of adds a different dimension. And so when you think about, you know, the structure and the support level, the support mechanisms that exist within the CFO Centre, you know, I was just sort of thinking about, you know, the fact that, let's just say I've got my fractional CFO coming in, and they're 1 day a week, and you know, they're becoming part of the team. They've got the polo shirt. They're having the water cooler conversations. They're feeling like they're a part of it. So they've got the support internally, but they're also kind of a team outside of my business too, aren't they? So they come together and they talk about things outside of that, like you've alluded to. You know, I mean, you've talked about the global network, but then they're supported, aren't they, with you and well, with their regional manager and with each other as well, so that they can make sure that the service that they're providing their client base is really sound, is on point, that those things are proactively addressed every single quarter, aren't they?
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that the CFOs join the CFO Centre. A lot of them have had, you know, big, impressive careers. It's not just a money driver of why they're sort of joining. It's to add value. And yeah, so the power of the network. We have 2 monthly team meetings. And at those team meetings, we can do some issue processing where each CFOs, or maybe someone doesn't have something to contribute, but the CFOs who have an issue or a challenge within the client, we can express that, and then each of the CFOs can ask that CFO a question, and then they get to respond. And after their CFO gives their opinion, they sort of say, by the next team meeting, I'm going to do this and this. So we can unlock challenges together as a team, and I think that's sort of one of the reasons that they enjoy being part of a team. Something I just wanted to comment on that you mentioned about you know, SMEs having a tough time. They are the lifeblood of the economy, like they are in most countries around the world. And my dad refers to the forgotten middle. So like, you know, if you're a startup and you're in tech, there's funding and it's quite sexy. Or if you're a large multinational conglomerate, you can have all the resources that you need. But actually the companies, you know, a lot of those are, like, you know, family businesses. I think, because I'm part of Family Business Association here in Australia, is it 80% of the Australian workforce work for family businesses?
That's right.
It's a crazy stat, and I do believe it's those that are driving the economy, and so they can't afford the skill sets they need access to grow, but there's not the funding and support there to help them. So we're all about targeting the forgotten middle.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you say that, the forgotten middle. It's so true. I want to come full circle now, JP, back to family business, actually. What's What do you think the difference is between, from your perspective? So you've worked outside of this business, and now that you're within it, what difference has working for your own family business had for you? And what's the difference in the psyche or the mentality of working with that legacy in mind? You know how you said your mum and dad didn't necessarily create it thinking about, their four boys with any kind of succession planning in mind. It was a concept that they really believed in. They both clearly worked very well as a team together and created something very, very special here. But now that you're involved in it, and your brothers are involved in it too, how has that changed your perspective about the power of family business and what it really means?
Ooh, good question. It's an interesting dynamic, and I mean, we work for many businesses, so they're not all family businesses. They can be quite large. Obviously, you've got a big mining sector over here in Perth, but I really personally engage with family businesses because it's something that we're going through ourselves. As I said, it wasn't, I don't think mum and dad's plan. I think at one point when they left corporate, it could have been 5 million and flog it. However, when they realised what impact they were having both on the CFOs that are able to create their own freedom and the freedom that we could give our clients, it sort of built into this, what it is now. And I think it's the empathy around the dynamics. But I mean, it's a people business, most businesses, so they're affected. But when it's a family business, in terms of the legacy, what it means to that family and how they stay together and how they make decisions and what it means for the children of that family into a third generation, I just find it super interesting because it's the journey that I'm on myself, and I can't add that much value, and I don't try and add that much value as a CFO in these meetings. I just sort of orchestrate who I believe they should sort of meet for the best value. But when it gets to the family level, and conflicts or opportunities, and hearing other family story businesses, it really inspires me.
Oh, that's of course it does, and I think that your father's clearly a very inspiring man. Same with your mum, and I think that each of you, especially you, I mean, I've had the privilege of meeting with you, JP, and I've loved every minute of it, and I find that the whole ethos and philosophy behind CFO Centre incredibly inspiring. We will include access to the video, we'll include your website in the show notes. How else can people reach out to the CFO Centre? Well,
we obviously we've got our website, cfocentre.com. Feel free to reach out to we've got a chat service on there, and we've got a meet our team page, so you can have a scroll and see what CFOs and the caliber they've got. But everybody sort of in the business, it's managed to, something we're most proud of, managed to keep that close connection and not have that corporate feel where anybody you pick up the phone to, whether it's our UK office, South African office, Australian office, I speak to all those people all the time, and it'll be a warm welcome, and they'll point you in the right direction. And it won't be a salesy conversation.
No, I could imagine. I could imagine the type of conversation, and if it's anything like the ones that we've had, that it's going to be absolutely delightful, people listening. So JP, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege to have you as my guest today. And I look forward to our next conversation as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Ingrid, for having me on.
Okay, you've been listening to The Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard. And to find out how the Sales Doctor can help your organisation to transform its revenue, growth and profit, visit us on our website at www.thesalesdoctor.com.au. I look forward to your company next episode. Bye for now.